We're back. We're back after a nice holiday vacation, and the weather has turned. Chicago is really odd. As soon as September happens, the weather immediately gets cold. It was 47 degrees this morning, which I like, but my wife hates, but that's another story. So I hope everyone had a good holiday. So welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. We're back, you're back, and tonight, one of our own, Molly Wakeling, is going to present us. What are you going? You're going to talk about going to star parties. You know what star parties are? It's when you go out in the cold with cold food and warm beer and sit in your tent when the rain comes in, hoping it doesn't leak.
I don't know what kind of star parties you've been to.
Well, that's my experience with star parties. And hopefully you get one night out of the 2 or 3 that you're there where it's really exciting and you see everything. But Molly's had better experiences, and she's going to tell us why this is really a good thing to do. And I really agree with her, except I'm just kind of old, and I like to stay warm inside and do my imaging. But for the more robust and you, which probably most of you are, going out to star parties is probably a cool thing. Plus you get to meet a lot of people and play with their telescopes and trip over their tripods and, fun stuff. Anyway, before we get to Molly, we have a calendar. We filled up a few dates tonight. We have Molly. Okay. Jaime is going to present next week, another one of our people. Daniel Mooney after that, and I'm actually going to present on doing HORGB images, and I came up with a really nice hack for that. I don't know, can we say hacks in astrophotography? Anyway, I came up with a hack. Rod's going to be back, and he always does an interesting presentation, and I think we're filled up to November 3rd. Now, that still means anyone out there that has an interesting subject that they'd like to present, please send us a note from the astroimagingchannel.org. There's a little contact form, and say that you would like to talk about something. Gowrie? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something. Anyway, let us know. There's always new things happening out there. There's new people with hacks on how to do things. I guess hacks may be a bad word. Anyway, please send us a note, and we'll get you on the calendar. And we got some really dark skies coming up here in the wintertime, so there should be plenty to talk about. That's all I have for an introduction. So, Molly, tell us about why we should go to star parties, please.
All righty.
And I take back all the nasty things I said about star parties. They're really wonderful.
And, anyway, sometimes you do get some weather. It depends on which ones you go to, for sure. There's one in Ohio I go to that would very frequently get rain, and it was very frequently cold. So I feel you. I'm going to share my screen here, pull up my side of the slides here. Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to come on and talk about why everybody who can, should go to a star party, whether you're an imager or visual observer or a little bit of both, or an imager who kind of wants to get into visual observing a little bit and don't want to go buy your own 36-inch telescope and go look at somebody else's. Star parties are great for that. So let me tell you all about star parties. So first, for the uninitiated, what is a star party? I usually describe it to people as it's a gathering of fellow astro nerds under some dark skies for a week or a weekend. And I usually describe it to people as think amateur astronomy outdoor convention summer camp kind of a feel. Summer camp for grown-ups, but for a week or a weekend. This is a shot here from climbing up on top of the mesa at the Okie-Tex star party and the infamous flamingos, overlooking the nicely crowded field down below and all of their cool buildings. All right, so what kinds of things happen at star parties? So first of all night observing and imaging. There's usually some strict light restrictions to include screen brightness and covering up little LEDs and stuff like that, so it's nice and dark for both having good dark adaptation and taking nice, good images. There's a lot of daytime activities as well, especially if you're not the type to stay up all night. And you know, get up in the morning, unlike me, where I sleep until noon when I go to star parties. There's image processing workshops, observing recommendations and programs, talks about those things. Like Texas Star Party has their own observing programs. There's usually a talk about what's in those programs, and why they chose that topic. There's oftentimes scientific talks as well, so talking about a whole range of astronomy-related science topics, sometimes by folks from places like NASA or Green Bank and stuff like that. And then, of course, there's oftentimes astrophotography talks, especially at the bigger star parties, where that tend to attract more imagers than some of the smaller ones that tend to be a lot of visual observers, at least in my experience. Another great thing about star parties is meeting new people, seeing old friends, getting a chance to meet people who you've only met online. That's always fun. And also getting to rub elbows with some more well-known astronomers who go to some of these star parties. And on the topic of daytime activities, you can go hiking, birding, grill food, consume beverages, or relax in the shade, and just kind of enjoy camping as well, and being around a lot of other people who are like you. Kind of like a grown-up summer camp, like I said. All right, why should you go to one? First of all, dark skies. It's a great opportunity to get to some really excellent skies, Bortle 1, Bortle 2, be able to get those great views, bask under the light of the Milky Way, and be able to walk around just with starlight. Awesome. Make new friends, like the Aussies who came to Texas Star Party several years ago and maybe have come back since then. Sometimes get to look through big telescopes. See people's weird contraptions. Texas Star Party and others have an award for amateur telescope making, to include cellophane, of course. And people have come up with all kinds of both crazy and unique and awesome telescope designs somehow related to, or designs of things related to astronomy, like this observing chair here with his, I think it's a 6-inch, is it either a 6 or an 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain that he had attached to those like scissor fork arms, and he could just turn the chair with his feet and move it up and down. It was incredible. That's a car seat there. Attend cool talks. So fun science talks. Here he's showing how basically how comets and asteroids are made with some kitchen materials. Win fabulous prizes. A lot of star parties, even the smaller ones, have some kind of prize drawing with prizes donated from club members or from some of the vendors or from other places. And you can win everything from books to batteries to oftentimes there's a grand prize of a telescope or something like that. That's pretty awesome. All right, so this is not a complete list of all the star parties that are in the US and Canada. Sky and Telescope does maintain a pretty good list. If you go onto their website, and if you just search for star parties in America or just star parties, Sky and Telescope's list comes up pretty high on that search result. But I wanted to highlight some. The ones in bold on these pages are ones that I've been to, and they happen all throughout the course of the year. They'll be in some of the typically hotter locales in the wintertime, like Death Valley, and some of the further north locales in the summertime where it's less miserable during the day. But they're in states all over the country. I think almost every state has a star party. There's some at some pretty incredible places like the Grand Canyon. Of course, there's Stellophane Convention, which is a very famous star party up in Vermont. Yeah, it's right on there on the page. Yes, Vermont. I didn't make it out there when I was living in Ohio, but I always wanted to go to that one. It's very storied. Yeah, continuing on through the year here, Okie-Tex Star Party is coming up. I think it's actually the first weekend of October this year. I'm not making it because I'm going out to my dark sky property that weekend, but Okie-Tex was a really fun one as well. Yeah, states all over the country, and yeah, Sky and Telescope has a great list of these. So I want to talk about some of the experiences that I've had at star parties to kind of show what things look like there and some fun that I've had. So Texas Star Party was actually not the first star party I went to. I went to a little one in Ohio called Hidden Hollow that I'll talk about in a little bit. It was the first like major star party I went to. I was living in Dayton, Ohio at the time, and it was a 20-hour drive, but absolutely worth it. I didn't drive that straight through. I drove over like 2.5 days, or yeah, 2.5 days. Don't worry. Now that I live in Albuquerque, it's only 7 hours away, which I'm super excited about. They did release the dates for Texas Star Party 2025. It's April 20th through 27th. Get excited. So I got to go in 2017, 18, and 19. I haven't made it back since 2019, but I'm hoping to make it back here soon. That's in Fort Davis, Texas. So on the map here, I've got this red marker. You can see it's under some pretty nice dark skies there. So load up my car with all kinds of, like, I think I've managed to pack, well, I have packed 4 telescope rigs before. I think there was 2 in this car, plus everything I needed for camping in a cabin for Texas Star Party. This is my sister. She flew out to come down to Texas Star Party with me, and this is my poor baby Escape that is now totaled as of a couple weeks ago, but it did a good job going to all these star parties. We hit some weather on the way down in Missouri. We took the northern route that year. I took the southern route after that, going down through Arkansas instead, because yeah, that's like tornado season, going through Tornado Alley, and yeah, we had some pretty exciting weather when we were on this drive down. Also, this is in Abilene, Texas, so they also had some weather that year, and it was gorgeous though. There was a group of lightning like storm chasers staying at the same hotel as me, and I was taking pictures and like, oh hey, are you with them? I'm like, no, I'm going to do astronomy. So this was the 2 rigs that I brought with me. The first year I went down, the one on the left is my C11 and Celestron CGE Pro, which is the largest one of like collection of things that I've ever had. There's a whole long story behind how that happened, which I won't tell here. But yeah, my big rig. And then I think I borrowed that Celestron AVX to run my 8-inch off of, and my little Borg guide scope on top. But you know, that's a lot of stuff to carry around. So I started downsizing after that. I still brought the C11 and the CGE Pro, but then I brought just the Borg and left the C8. Well, I brought the C8 with me too. We did visual observing, but I didn't have that on the imaging rig. And then the following year, I downsized even further, and I had acquired a Takahashi by this point, and borrowed another Celestron AVX, and just ran 2 refractors instead. So it was nice to kind of downsize a little bit from the C11. You can see I've got the one on the left is staked into the ground, because there's I think every year I've been the Texas Star Party, there was a dust devil that came through, and so I started bolting myself to the ground at that star party after that. In 2019, brought my minion, Michaela, came down. She was a high schooler back when we first met, and is now getting her PhD in astrophysics, and kind of got her into doing astrophotography, which was a lot of fun. In 2019, I brought my parents down, which was exciting. They know nothing about astronomy, never been involved in astronomy. And I showed them how to use my 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain on the Nexstar SE, the Celestron's fork arm mount. And they took like the level 1 Texas Star Party observing list and went to town. And you know, we're comparing notes and like, do you see that? It's over there, kind of slightly to the left. Oh yeah, I see it. You know, it was really fun to like share this with my parents for a little bit. For the 1 year I could convince them to come down. That was great. Here's an overhead view of the Texas Star Party. It's actually got 3 observing fields. There's some like 400 or 500 people that go to Texas Star Party. It's pretty incredible. It's one of the bigger star parties. I think it's the biggest. It's among the biggest, if not the biggest. The main one that you see here, this is the upper field, and it's pretty densely packed, as you can see. But the energy on that field at night, when everybody is observing and taking notes and sharing with each other, and it's just like such incredible energy. I always make my way up there as soon as I get my imaging rigs up and running, because it's just so much fun to go hang out with people and look through their big telescopes and stuff like that. There's a guy who I've seen a couple times there, Larry, and I forget his last name again. I think it starts with a W. He's a 36-inch Newtonian, it's a 36-inch Dob that he brings, and he's got like a special winch on the back of his truck because the mirror weighs like 700 pounds. But he sets this up with an orchard ladder to get all the way to the top, and mind-blowing, just mind-blowing to look at that telescope. So that's a real treat. Down here is the middle
Molly,
field. Yeah.
how do you stake out your territory there? Do you just like put a stake in the ground and like, this is mine, or they have places for you?
No, yeah, you show up and you claim your spot. The upper field is subdivided so that it's easier for people to kind of see where the different spots are and kind of stay confined to their 10-foot by 10-foot space. But yeah, you show up and you stake your claim, basically.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And it also depends a little bit about where the electrical lines are running and things like that.
Yeah.
And you do have to be careful that you pay attention to what's happening around you, so you kind of naturally form a grid.
Yeah, yeah, because they run power lines down the field with multiple boxes, and get yourself stationed close to power. The middle field is for the less serious observers go. The view is a little bit cut off to the west, but you can camp right next to it, where on the upper field it's a little harder to camp near your gear. You can kind of camp right next to your gear down on the middle field here. And way back here behind the trees is the lower field, and this is where a lot of the astrophotographers set up, because we can be a lot more spread out. There's not as many people down there, and we don't have to worry quite as much about spilling light because we're not around these very serious visual observers. But we kind of space ourselves out a little bit more too down there. Downside is there's a lot of trees down there that you kind of have to set up strategically to dodge, depending on where your planned targets are at. But that's down where all the RVs are parked, or about half the RVs are parked down there, so you can potentially be much closer to your campsite when you're down there as well.
Molly, could I interrupt you for a second? It'll be more than a second. But what Molly's describing here in Texas is true. And if you've been to Texas, you learn this pretty quick. Now, it's easy not to know it when you first get there. And so when you first get there to Texas or any other star party, and what we're describing happens at every star party, where there are certain areas that are kind of reserved for this and other areas kind of reserved for that. Try figuring all that stuff out before you set up.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you can talk to the people around you, people who've been to that star party before, kind of get the lay down. Oftentimes I'll kind of go stand at a spot and look around and see if anybody's like looking at me funny for being in that spot. Or I'll just ask them like, hey, is anybody set up here? And yet, because sometimes clubs will set up together. And sometimes there's some of the like the star party standbys who've been coming for decades who kind of have their spots. So yeah, it's good just to ask around and be polite to your neighbors. This is the sort of gathering hall for Texas Star Party. It is air conditioned, so that's great. And this is where all the talks are held and the prizes are given away. And you can also just come hang out in here. So it's a nice indoor space to escape the outdoors for a little bit. Also, Fort Davis, Texas, where Texas Star Party is held near, is really close to the McDonald Observatory. And the Star Party usually secures a couple of tours that people can sign up to go on. The tour is free. You can sign up. You can pay a little bit of money to get driven up there, or you can drive yourself up there and get to tour some of the telescopes up there. The same year I brought my parents, I also convinced one of my aunts and uncles to come. This uncle of mine, he also does astrophotography. So we all went up to go see the McDonald Observatory together. And we got to check out, this is the Harlan J. Smith telescope. It's 107 inches mirror diameter. And you can watch this thing move here, and it's just crazy. It's in this enormous dome. This thing's been around since the 60s. It's got a giant spectrograph on the bottom right now. But really incredible to get to watch that thing move during the day and get to just see how huge it is in person. And if you're lucky, you get to actually operate the control stick and move it around, which was really cool. We also got to see the Hobby Eberly telescope, which is 10 meters effective diameter, 91 hexagonal mirror segments, weighs 13 tons, built in 1996, is specifically for spectroscopy. Now, it only rotates. It doesn't tilt up and down. It rotates 360 degrees on these airbag cushions. They inflate, and then the thing can turn. It's really cool. But it covers an annulus of the sky, but it can cover 70% of the sky, because what they do is the receiver hanging above the mirror moves across, it tracks across the surface of the mirror, and that's how they track, since they don't tilt it. And so they were able to build this thing for a lot cheaper because of the fact that it just moves on this one axis. And but they can still see a lot of sky. They have a really unique queuing program for how they decide who's going to observe on what night, because they're very opportunistic based on what's in the sky and transient events and stuff like that. They do feature pretty good at Texas Star Party. Quality can vary from year to year, but no doubt on quantity. And yeah, and you can also cook for yourself, but it was nice just to go to the dining hall and get some good American meal and salad and dessert and everything. Texas Star Party is one of the ones that has some bunkhouses available. So if you don't want to camp, then you can stay in the bunkhouses. They also have what they call the hotel rooms, which are cabins up near the upper field that you can rent and have to your, like, not to yourself, but like your family or a couple of people together. Yeah, so this is the women's bunkhouse, and it was nice to be able to do that before I had the trailer and have some air conditioning and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. This is Robert Reeves here, actually, and I can't remember who the other guy is, but they dressed up and they were doing a skit and during the prize giveaway, and it was pretty fun. And yeah, you just get to Texas Star Party has some pretty good skies, and it's fun just to sit there underneath of the Milky Way. Here's a shot on the upper field, looking toward the Milky Way as well, looking south. And then here's a tracked shot that this is a 7-panel mosaic of 1-minute tracked exposures that I'm really quite pleased with that I took from down there. All right, I'm going to talk about a different kind of star party. So the Hidden Hollow Star Party is one that I've been to 4 times up in, it's near Mansfield, Ohio. As you can see on the map here, it's not the darkest place, but it's one of the darker places in the vicinity without having to go all the way to parts of Kentucky or Pennsylvania. And it's a fun group of people. Their astronomy club up there hosts this, and they have a nice setup here with this. This is actually at a summer camp, but they have this incredible observatory there, which I'll get to in a sec. It's a very beautiful locale. It's green and lots of trees, and here's a gorgeous sunset from the top of the hill. And inside of that dome is this 36-inch Newtonian called Big Blue, mounted in a similar way that the one at McDonald's is mounted on. I can't remember what that kind of mounting is called, but it's a Newtonian, so the eyepiece is at the top. So members of the club are trained to use the scissor lift that you can see here at the bottom of the image, and they get it set on a target, and then they take you up on the scissor lift to the top, and you can look through the eyepiece. You can get a couple people up there at a time, and it's pretty great looking at things like the Hercules cluster in that telescope, because you can just resolve hundreds of stars. It's so beautiful. This is a bit of a smaller crowd than Texas Star Party, usually 30-ish people, not 30 telescopes though. Here's kind of the telescope setup here. Yeah, so kind of a smaller crowd, a little more relaxed atmosphere. There's a spot kind of behind here to the right that's on a little bit of a hill surrounded by bushes. So the astrophotographers will set up there so that we don't spill too much light over to the visual observers. So here they also have an indoor space that's not air conditioned, but it's not quite as hot. This is like in October in Ohio. and a place to gather for door prizes and a couple of talks and things like that. The first, well, I didn't get a picture of what I brought the first year, but I think it was probably just about this same rig in 2016. In 2017, I brought my big rig, my C11, and that was the CGE Pro, yeah. But I was having a lot of issues with that telescope at the time, that mount in particular. So the club graciously let me borrow one of their Celestron AVXs and a refractor. So I still got to get some imaging done that weekend. I downsized in subsequent years because this star party, it's only a couple of days. It usually rains a lot of the time. We'll be lucky if we get one clear night. So I started just bringing, well, this is a Celestron AVX, but I have a camera lens on there, the Rokinon 135 millimeter. A little easier to set up and move around and stuff like that. And downsized a little bit. They also have cabins and this big bunkhouse. I was the only one staying in here. Yes, you can stay in this one too if you don't want to tent camp or don't have a trailer. And yeah, they still get some fun speakers out there. They had Bob King one year. And this is the picture I showed earlier. He's doing a science talk. And this is not Bob King. Another guy's doing a science talk on how comets are made and stuff like that. So a fun group of people, fun group of talks. In 2017, I got to go to a fairly unique star party at the Green Bank Radio Observatory at the Green Bank Star Quest. It was about a 6-hour drive from Dayton over in West Virginia. So that's nice to be able to get over there into those dark skies without too crazy of a drive. I only went the 1 year. It's a little hard to go as an astrophotographer to that one for reasons I'll get into shortly here. I loaded up my trustworthy and excellent escape and brought all kinds of gear. And also I had 2 people's sets of gear in here because I brought my minion Michaela with me on this one as well. That is the Green Bank telescope there in the background, the big boy. So we got to kind of sit in its shadow on the observing field, which was very cool. Here's another shot of it looking over part of the observing field. It's further away than it looks. There's a barn over there is where you can recharge your batteries, but there's no power on the field. And even though they know they're going to get a lot of interference that weekend from just all the people and all the electronics, they do ask people to shut off all of their Wi-Fi emissions and Bluetooth emissions, stuff like that, to kind of keep the noise level down. The radio noise level that is, which at that time I didn't have any radio. I didn't have any wireless or Bluetooth stuff on my rig. But nowadays, like I operate a wireless area network. I have a focuser that I cannot shut the Wi-Fi off on. At least I haven't figured out how. And yeah, I wouldn't be able to go to this star party nowadays. I also don't have enough battery power to run more than one rig. But it was really fun to go that 1 year before I had as much fancy stuff. Here's the observing field. A lot of people are just camping right next to their telescopes. I brought the big boy, the C11 on the CGE Pro, and it was behaving that weekend for the little bit of time that it behaved. So got that set up there. Here's Michaela and I with both of our scopes set up. And of course, they have the Green Bank Science Center there, which is a lot of fun to go through. And this is where all the talks are at. And they have a little cafeteria. They have a cafeteria, but in this building is where they have a little snack bar. And members of the public come for events at that building. They have a really cool radio, just like astronomy, like a science museum type of room. They've got some really nice stuff in there. It's fun to go through there. Now, there's a lot of interesting things at the Green Bank Radio Observatory because of just how sensitive that big giant dish is and all the other radio telescopes are. So for instance, here on the left, they have a computer lab that people at the Star Party and also their visiting scientists can use. And it is inside of a giant Faraday cage. There's a double door system here that you open one vault door, you go into the airlock, you close it, and then you open another door so that you keep all of the EMF, the electromagnetic radiation from all the electronics running confined to that room. And even the windows are special Faraday cage windows. Here on the right is the microwave oven in the cafeteria. They do have one, but it is also inside of this Faraday cage box. And it's one of those ones where you set you rotate the knob and then you close the door, and that's how long it cooks your food for. So that was kind of some novel stuff there. That was a lot of fun. Here's Michaela. She got a nice image of the Andromeda Galaxy. And it did get a pretty epic storm one of the nights, and I went out underneath the overhang of the bunkhouse and got some pretty cool lightning shots. Just this was like kind of lucky lightning shot, as it were. As just took a bunch to see if I could get a couple out of the thousands that I took. And yeah, they also have a bunkhouse at this star party, which I stayed at, which was really nice, for their visiting scientists and stuff like that. And yeah, a decent sized crowd that came out to this one. All right, Okie-Tex is people always are debating between going to Okie-Tex and Texas Star Party because they're kind of a similar class of star party. This one was 22-hour drive from Dayton, Ohio, but it's only 5 hours from Albuquerque now, which again, very excited. I've only gone 1 year so far, back in 2022. It's in the Oklahoma Panhandle, near the Black Mesa State Park. It is very dark out there. I do have to say it is a little darker than Texas Star Party, especially because around Texas Star Party, a lot of more oil drilling operations are starting to spring up. So Okie-Tex is a little bit darker than Texas Star Party. Once again, loaded up the Escape with all kinds of goodies. But that year, I had my trailer that I bought in 2020, so I got to take my extremely cute, amazing, adorable little trailer with me and get to camp in that instead of because there's no bunkhouses at Okie-Tex. So now I can go to more star parties since I'm camping in the trailer. I never wanted to tent camp at star parties because if you're trying to sleep in the morning and it's hot and it's bright and it's really hard to do, it can be cold at night at a lot of these star parties as well. And if it rains and stuff like that, it's really nice to have the trailer. So here's the observing field, kind of from the ground level. Again, no particular organization here, but they lay out the power cords in a way where there's usually a row of RVs and trailers and a row of equipment and a row of RVs and trailers and a row of equipment. And you can only run equipment on their power. They don't have enough power there for RVs, unlike Texas Star Party that does have some hookups. But people bring their generators to run their air conditioning during the day and then run their equipment, their astronomy equipment, off of the site power at night. Here's the overhead view that I showed toward the beginning, overlooking the couple of observing fields there. There's my trailer right there, parked, tucked right in between two other trailers here. And I got some great shade, which kept my trailer nice and cool because it got up into the 90s that week. It's a little hot. And there's my equipment. So I was close enough I could just get out and walk over to it. And also I could wirelessly connect to my computers from inside my trailer and check how they were doing before I went to sleep, which was awesome. Now, those of you who know me know that I'm a little crazy when it comes to equipment. And I decided it's an 8-day star party. They usually have incredible weather, except for one infamous year where it rained all week. But the year I went, it was clear, I think 6 of the nights. And I brought 4 imaging rigs. You heard that correctly. I brought 4. I have a really fancy camera lens here on the left that I got to borrow. I have my 9¼ Edge HD on my Paramount. I have my Takahashi on an AVX, and kind of, it's a little hard to see behind it. I have a Skywatcher Star Adventurer with the Rokinon 135 on there. And I planned to run all 4 of those. And after getting through some bugs the first night or 2, did manage to successfully run all 4 of them, which was a ton of fun. They also have a dining hall area that is air conditioned, so you can go take a break in there. They feed you, or you can also cook for yourself. Among really cool telescopes you get to look through at the star parties, there's a 30-inch f3 at this one. That was so much fun to look through. They hadn't named it yet. I think it was recently acquired, but yeah, that was really fun to look through. Really great skies out there. And in this time of the year, Milky Way is high in the first half of the night. And then if you stay all the way up until dawn, you can catch Orion. So it's kind of a nice time of year to be able to get the summertime objects and start to get some of the wintertime objects. The Pleiades were coming up about 2 a.m., I think. So that was a lot of fun. Here's a friend of mine, Will Young, looking through his Dobsonian. Yeah, so that's all the star party stories. So now let's get to some facts and figures on what you should know about going to a star party. So first of all, as you've probably seen at other events that you've been to, or maybe you haven't if you haven't been to any yet, red lights only, red LEDs specifically. Putting a red filter paper in front of a white light oftentimes just makes it pink, and it's not really good enough for maintaining dark adaptation. So dim red lights, if you're running around with a bright red light, you will also destroy a dark adaptation. So please be mindful. And honestly, like I usually, okay, admittedly, I'm young, I have good eyes, but I have a much easier time navigating around star parties just under the starlight, as opposed to restricting my field of view when using the red light to just what's right in front of me. So I oftentimes just walk around just under the starlight. I always keep them pointed at the ground, put diffusive tape on them, or use the red flashlight instead of a headlamp. I like using a headlamp. I always keep it pointed down. And my brighter headlamps, I just put some blue tape over so that I could still see, but not blind people as I was walking around. Some star parties are more serious on this than others in terms of laser pointers, but especially big ones where there's a lot of astrophotographers, they ban them. So like Texas Star Party, for instance, unless it's cloudy or mostly cloudy, no laser pointers, to be nice to all the imagers. A lot of cars these days don't have lights that you can shut off. So you got to plan ahead a bit and make sure everything is out of your car so that you don't open your car doors after dark. And don't expect to be able to drive back if you're staying at a hotel somewhere nearby unless you park pretty far away from the observing field. Now, what happens every night at Okie-Tex, where all the cars are parked near where all the observing is happening, is somebody has their keys in their pocket, they lean over and sets off their car alarm every single night. So take your keys out of your pocket, please. You don't need them there. It's for the sake of all the visual observers and also just for maintaining your night vision even as an astrophotographer, covering laptop screens with red film, or if you have, I have some laptops that can go very dim, and I use an app called Flux to make them very red. And then I can actually look at that screen and look at the sky and still have dark adaptation. So maybe not exquisite dark adaptation, but good enough to not bother people or myself. Shielding your screen. I use an app called Twilight on my phone to make my phone screen very dim and red, so I can look at it when I'm looking up something in Sky Safari. It helps to protect your neighbors and be mindful to them as well. If you're staying in an RV or trailer, cover your windows or use red or amber LEDs inside, again, so that when you open that door, you're not blinding your neighbors. And a lot of equipment has LEDs. I have some stuff that has blue and green LEDs, and I'll go cover those, and I'll cover some of the bright red ones as well. So what are some things you should know? Dress warm. Even in the summer, the night will feel cold, especially once you've been standing around for several hours. I always bring like a full-on winter coat and multiple layers of shirts and pants to Texas Star Party, because even though it's only in like the 50s and 60s, it feels way colder than that when it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you've been up for 5 nights straight. A lot of star parties disallow playing music over speakers just for the sake of everybody around you. Check pet rules and obey them. Consider sharing your telescope with passersby. It helps new folks learn. It also, especially if you have like a bigger scope, it's fun for everybody to get to enjoy all that juicy Dob real estate. So have your observing list, but it is nice to let other people take a look through and maybe request a target or two, especially some of the new folks. So consider sharing your scope. Do as much, especially for the astrophotographers, do as much setup during the day as possible so you can maximize your dark time. And I always like to bring snacks. Some star parties have snack bars that are open till 2, which is great. But I'm usually craving some Cheez-Its a couple times throughout the night, so bring some snacks. what kind of amenities do star parties have? It varies pretty widely. Some have bunkhouses like Texas Star Party, Green Bank, Hidden Hollow, Okie-Tex. There might be some others that I'm not aware of. Otherwise, RVs, travel trailers, and campers are the general norm. You can tent camp. A lot of people tent camp. You can camp in your car if you're in the type of car where you can turn off all the lights. And people also sleep in equipment trailers sometimes, kind of make things work. And some actually have some hotels or B&Bs nearby. Actually, Okie-Tex has a B&B that's about 2 miles away that some people like to stay at. But you do have to park your car all the way at the end and walk up if you're going to plan on driving back to that B&B before dawn. So some have kitchens and catering. Some just have food trucks. There's usually some kind of food at all the ones I've been to, but I also sometimes do some of my own cooking in my trailer. Some people have small barbecue grills or propane stoves, something like that. Just no outdoor flames after dark out. You can run your propane stove inside, but yeah, just to keep the light down. Most places are too far from town to go into them very often, so you have to plan ahead on ice and food, and not planning on going into town to eat and stuff like that. And finally, my advice for imagers, as we get toward the end of this talk here, assemble your whole rig from top to bottom at home before you go. That way you make sure you have everything. Tools, cables, adapters, all the little things that you can sometimes forget about. I also have a giant toolbox. It's actually a tackle box that I got on Amazon. It's the biggest one I could find. And I bring all kinds of spare tools, nuts, bolts, adapters, cables, zip ties. And actually, I oftentimes lend or give that stuff to my neighbors even more than I use it for myself. So it's nice to have those around to share with your struggling neighbors as well who might have forgotten something important. Keep copies of your program and driver install files locally. Sometimes you need to reinstall a driver or install an older version because sometimes things work at home and get to the field and things get weird. So I just keep a local copy of all those programs on the computer that I'm using. Bring a backup computer if you can, because inevitably, something that important is going to fail when you need it. Don't try any new gear or software at star parties, because inevitably things are going to go wrong and you're going to waste a lot of time fixing stuff. Only do new targets. And that's what I got. Question time.
Thank you, Molly.
All right, you want to stop sharing?
Yeah.
All right, questions.
Eric,
Yes,
could I say a little something?
Sure.
Because there is a star party that Molly has never been to that I work with a lot. I'm going to share my screen. I think I'm going to share my screen. Which one? Oh, I'm going to share the entire screen. Share. Come on, screen. Share. I haven't shared my screen in so long, I've forgotten how to do it. Okay, you should be seeing it all now. Not that one. I want the other one. Where are we? Every year, the Riverside Club that I belong to puts on a star party down at Borrego Springs, California, which is about an hour and a half northeast of San Diego. And it's a lot of fun for us all year. We have about 200 and 250 people show up, and you can see in the pictures here, it's at a resort. It's actually at a hotel with pools and a spa, hot tubs. It also has a lot of place for camping. Here's one of the RVs. There's like 65 spots for campers. It's usually held around Halloween, so we get things like this. And we've got, like I said, about 200 and some attendees. All right. And one of the things that's very special this year is that my good buddy, who I met at the Texas Star Party, let me see, stop sharing. Stop sharing. Molly is going to be doing the workshop. So she's coming out to California. Molly, you want to say something about that yet? You got it all ready to go?
Yeah, I have been starting to put things together. I'm going to do kind of the current plan, subject to change, is to kind of do 2 segments, one on soup to nuts picks and sight. So how to get through a whole workflow. I'm probably gonna do a Hubble palette workflow, and it's kind of from beginning to end, all the little tips and tricks and stuff that I do to make a nice image. And then for part 2, I'm gonna cover a lot of hardware stuff and probably some Nina as well. So all astrophotography, but that's the current plan.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and register at nightfallstarparty.com. There are only about 10 regular places left, meaning hotel rooms and or RV spots out of 165 of them or something like that. But there are other places to stay in the region. Within a mile, there's a state park with hundreds of campsites for you and things like that. So come join us for Nightfall, and you'll meet one of the more delightful people, I think, in the astroimaging hobby. I met Molly in Texas a long time ago, and the one thing I can tell you for sure is, besides she's very competent and all that other stuff, is don't loan her anything.
Hey, I give back things that people loan to me. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
If they live long enough.
I think we've all had experiences. I don't think we should extend the show so long as to all tell about what we've loaned Molly. Okay,
that's all right. It's a sharing hobby, and I don't think we tease you, Molly, but no one begrudges loaning things. In fact, I think all of us have probably given away pieces of equipment to up and coming imagers, astrophotographers, or people who just want to play with telescopes.
Every once in a while, somebody gives me something and says, thanks. And I go, what? And they go, oh, you loaned that to me. I said, oh, it's mine? Okay, thanks.
You know, we went to the eclipse. Molly came down with us to Ohio. And about 8 years before, I had a 6-inch SCT on one of the little not fork mounts, AL mounts. And I wasn't using it, so I gave it to my friend Mitch, who gave it to his grandson, and that telescope was still operating and showed up at the eclipse, and we all looked through it, and it had just wonderful views. So I think with this kind of equipment, you know, we do give things away. We don't give them away to be trash. We give them away to be used, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was a huge leg up for me, especially in the early days, to get some nicer equipment at the get-go. And I'm very grateful.
Yeah. So no more questions over here, Astro Dave. We have a sort of secret stuff. Yeah. You want to read that? Well, I'll read it. Astro Dave, we have a sort of secret star party in Colorado at the same place as RMSS.
Oh yeah. September Skies. I was going to go to September Skies this year, but then I was invited to the Amarillo Astronomy Club's sort of local star party that same weekend. They invited me to give a talk, so I ended up going out there instead. But one of my friends, Dan, went up to September Skies.
Yeah, I remember being at the Winter Star Party once and hearing from one of the grand nabobs of astronomy, and he said that there were 5 great star parties that everybody has to go to, and they included I wrote them down here: Stellafane, which back in Springfield, and then the Winter Star Party, which we were at the time, Texas, which you heard about just now, RTMC, which eventually got its venue taken back by its owner. YMCA took it back, so they can't do that anymore. And then Oregon, and those were the ones that you really got to get to. And I've been to all of those, and all of them are really good events for sharing ideas and swapping lives with people. It's also, you know, they are all over the world. I went to one down in New Zealand once and stuff like that. And they all have commonalities, but they all have very specific cultures and things that everybody knows at one star party. Nobody realizes at another star party. So, be cool when you go. Everybody's friendly and they'll take care of you and stuff like that. But be cool when you go and kind of take it easy and, ask how things are done and stuff like that when you go to a star party. Don't you think, Molly? You've been to a few, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is that the people who put them on love their jobs. They're really into it. They think everybody should know it. They think everybody should do things the same. Know the spirit of the star party and things like that. They also have gotten there 3 or 4 days early to put up the tents and put out the power lines and all that other stuff. They need help. They always need help. So I'm not saying you do it just willy-nilly, but volunteer. If you're going to a star party on a regular basis, be a volunteer. Not just because you get to come in early, but because it takes a lot of work to pull these things off. So do that kind of stuff. Okay. Thank you. That's my spiel.
And I think we don't have any more questions. No. By the way, Molly, we usually hang out after the meeting. You're welcome.
Do you guys have anything you want to add about star parties?
No, I'm not really a star party guy because I like to stay warm and comfy.
There's plenty of places you can stay warm and comfy and go to a star party. Texas has lodges, and Texas is a dude ranch. Texas Star Party is at a dude ranch. Nightfall is another example. It's a resort. All right, where you can go swimming during the day. They've got full-size restaurants, and they've got a little town nearby. It's in a dark sky city. So, there's things to do. So that's not a good excuse, Eric.
Well, lazy is actually a good excuse for a lot of things. So
okay, it's easier to say than curmudgeon, but...
I'm not a curmudgeon. I actually went to 2 of the star parties in Illinois, and it was kind of fun to hang out with everyone. I don't think I imaged anything. I just went down there to just kind of hang out with friends that gathered. So I'm sure that for that reason alone, it's probably worth a trip to some of these places. Not for a week, but for a couple of days.
And to find out what some of these people on cloudy nights actually look like, it's scary.
Oh, we don't want to do that. I was introduced to, I met a new person online today. Yeah, it's a shock.
Even people who you see video for online always look different in person. like when I got to actually see you guys at AIC in 2019.
Well, of course, we use 20-year-old pictures, the best. and then it's us. Anyway, we're just gabbing. We have anything else? I think that's just about it. Molly, great presentation. Thank you very much. Even if I'm not inclined to go, I'm thinking about it a little bit more, which is a good thing. And you had a pretty good audience who are still there. So thank everyone online. Don't forget, if you do have a presentation, you've been thinking about it, please let us know. There are some slots about 6 weeks out, and we'd love to fill them all up. So if that's it, who's running the show tonight? You. All right. Patrick raised his hand. So good night, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.